The plane touched down on the familiar tarmac of her home country with a sense of finality. Moira could hardly believe that after 3 long years, she was finally back. Her fingers tightened around the armrest, her heart thundering in her chest as the wheels screeched against the runway. The memories of her childhood here, and the life she had left behind, flooded her mind in a rush. She hadn't thought much about her return to consume with everything she had left behind abroad, but now, standing on the threshold of her homeland, the weight of it all hit her like a tidal wave. The airport terminal was bathing with the usual chaos. Moira stepped off the plane, her eyes scanning the crowds for any familiar faces. She hadn't expected someone to meet her, but part of her had hoped for a sign that she wasn't entirely alone in this world. As she moved through the crowded terminal, she caught sight of a tall figure leaning against a pillar near the baggage claim area. His posture was relaxed, but Moira knew him too well. His presence radiated something that always made her heart skip a beat. Her pulse quickened. Aman. Her stomach fluttered as she walked toward him, each step bringing her closer to the one person who had been the most important part of her life during these years abroad. She could feel the weight of his gaze on her even before she saw his face. When their eyes finally met, something unspoken passed between them, a shared history, a promise. Aman, she sighed, her voice soft but steady. Aman's lips curved into a slow, knowing smile as he pushed himself off the pillar and moved toward her. The air around them seemed to shift, charged with something electric. Moira. He said her name with a warmth that made her feel as though everything else had fallen away. Welcome back. For a moment, the world around them seemed to blur, as if the entire airport had faded into the background. It was just the two of them, standing there, amidst the noise and the chaos. But in their own little bubble, the chaos apart, the distance, the uncertainty, all of it seemed insignificant in the face of the bond they shared. Moira felt herself smiling, despite the twinge of unease in her chest. I didn't think you'd come. Aman raised an eyebrow, his dark eyes locking onto hers. You honestly think I wouldn't? She swallowed hard, trying to keep her emotions in check. She hadn't realized just how much she had missed him until now. It wasn't just his presence that soothed her, it was the way he always seemed to understand her. The way his gaze could make her feel like everything was going to be okay. Moira turned to collect her luggage, but before she could reach the carousel, Aman had already stepped forward to grab her suitcase from the conveyor belt. He was always the one who took charge, the one who seemed to know exactly what she needed before she even said a word. It had always been that way between them. They made their way out of the airport in comfortable silence, the tension between them almost palpable. The car ride felt surreal, as if they were slipping back into something familiar but also new. Moira glanced at him from the corner of her eye, watching the way his fingers gripped the steering wheel, his jaw tense, as though he was struggling with something. Are you okay? Moira finally asked, her voice quiet. She didn't know why she felt the need to ask, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Aman's gaze flickered to her for a brief moment before he looked back at the road. I'm fine, he said, his tone more curt than usual. I just wasn't expecting you to come back. Moira frowned slightly. She had always known that there was more between them than just friendship, but she had never dared to admit it, not even to herself. The years apart had been difficult, but not in the way one might think. She had spent those years with him in her heart, but never truly in her life, and that had always been the hardest part. I wasn't expecting it either, Moira replied, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought maybe I'd never come back. Aman didn't respond right away. The silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. Moira could feel the weight of his gaze on her, even without looking at him. She had always known that Aman was a complicated man, and this silence only seemed to confirm that. The drive seemed to last forever, and yet, it felt like it was over too soon. When they arrived at her family's estate, the familiarity of the place was almost overwhelming. The large, imposing mansion stood at the end of the long driveway, its stone fort as cold and distant as it had always been. Moira hesitated for a moment before stepping out of the car, her fingers trembling as she closed the door. It was as though she had never left, yet everything felt so different. She had changed, the world had changed, and she was unsure if the things she had left behind could be the same. Aman stood next to her, his gaze never leaving her face. His expression was unreadable, but Moira could sense the undercurrent of something more beneath his calm exterior. I should go, Aman sighed, breaking the silence. Your family's waiting for you. Moira looked at him, her throat tight. Aman. He shook his head, a sad smile tugging at the corner of his lips. You don't need me here right now. You've got enough to deal with. But Moira couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I don't want to face this alone. Aman hesitated, his eyes softening as he stepped closer to her. You won't be alone. I'll be here, always. And for a brief moment, it felt like everything would be okay. But deep down, Moira knew that their story wasn't going to be that simple. There was too much standing in their way, too many things they couldn't change, and too many people who would never understand. As Moira walked up the steps to the front door, she couldn't help but glance back at Aman, who remained at the bottom of the stairs, watching her with a look in his eyes that she couldn't quite decipher. And as the door closed behind her, Moira's heart dropped, knowing that this was only the beginning of what would be a far more complicated journey than she had ever anticipated. The sun had begun its descent behind the mountains, casting long shadows over the sprawling garden of Moira's family estate. It was a cool evening, the air crisp and fresh as it danced through the leaves of the ancient oak trees that dotted the vast grounds. Moira stood at the edge of the terrace, her gaze lost in the horizon, her mind swirling with the many thoughts and emotions that had followed her home. She had spent the afternoon with her family, exchanging pleasantries, but the weight of their expectations hung heavy on her shoulders. Everything had changed while she was away, everything except the way they looked at her. They still saw the girl they had adopted years ago, the orphan they had taken in and raised as their own. But Moira knew, deep down, that she wasn't that girl anymore. She had lived a life that they would never truly understand, a life that had shaped her into someone different. Aman's voice broke her thoughts as he approached, the sound of his footsteps crunching on the gravel behind her. She turned to see him walking toward her, his dark eyes thoughtful, his lips pressed into a tight line. He had come by earlier, and despite their brief conversation, something was left unsaid, an unspoken tension hanging in the air between them. "Moira," he called softly, and she felt her heart stir at the sound of his voice. Turning fully to face him, she gave him a small smile. "Hey," she replied, her tone barely above a whisper. "I was just thinking." Aman stopped a few feet away from her, his hands tucked into the pockets of his jacket. "About what?" He glanced around, taking in the serene beauty of the estate before focusing on her again. She hesitated, unsure of how to phrase what was on her mind. "Everything," she said finally. "It's strange being back here. I thought it would feel like coming home, but it doesn't." "Not really." Aman's expression softened, and he took a step closer to her. "You've changed, Moira, and so has this place." Her heart skipped a beat. "Have you changed too?" she asked before she could stop herself. Aman paused, his gaze flickering with something she couldn't quite interpret. "I've always been who I am, Moira. I've just had to adjust to the reality of it. But that doesn't mean I've stopped being me." She could feel the weight of his words, the quiet undertone of something deeper, something unspoken. Her chest tightened with a mixture of longing and fear, the very emotions she had tried to push aside during her time abroad. Aman looked down at the ground for a moment before lifting his gaze back to hers, his expression serious now. "You're still the same Moira I knew, and that's all that matters to me." The rest is just background noise. Moira's heart clenched. She had missed him more than she had ever let herself admit. The connection between them had never truly faded. No matter the distance or time apart, the bond they shared felt as strong as it had been 3 years ago when they had first met, and every moment of their time together had only deepened that connection. "I don't want to lose you again, Aman," she said quietly, her voice thick with emotion. Aman reached out, gently cupping her cheek with his hand, his thumb brushing over her skin. The gesture was tender, as if he was trying to reassure her without saying a word. "You won't lose me, Moira, not if I can help it." Her breath caught in her throat, and for a moment, she didn't know what to say. The words she had been holding back, words she had been afraid to speak, rose to her lips before she could stop them. "I want to marry you." Aman's hand still on her cheek, his eyes searching hers with an intensity that made her heart race. "What?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper, as if he couldn't believe what he had just heard. "I want to marry you," she repeated, her words steady now, her heart pounding in her chest. "I know it's soon, and everything is so complicated, but I can't ignore what I feel. I want you. I've always wanted you." Aman's eyes softened, his hand dropping from her cheek to take hers. He squeezed it gently, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Moira, you don't have to say that. I know how you feel. I feel the same way." "But..." Moira's chest tightened at the hesitation in his voice. "But..." Aman sighed, looking away for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts. "But we both know it's not that simple. Your family, they won't approve. Your life here, everything they expect of you, none of that fits with what we want." Moira shook her head, refusing to accept that their love could be so easily dismissed. "I don't care about what they want. This is about us, Aman. This is about what we want." "I know," he said softly, stepping closer until there was barely any space between them. His breath brushed against her skin, warm and steady. "But it's not just about us. It's about everything that's being built around you, everything that's expected of you. I don't want to drag you into something you'll regret." She stared at him, her mind racing. "Aman, I'm not afraid of what's ahead. I just want you. I want to build a future with you, no matter what it takes, no matter what they say." For a moment, there was silence between them, the weight of their unspoken emotions hanging thick in the air. Finally, Aman exhaled, his expression softening as he reached for her hand again. "You're right," he said, his voice low and filled with determination. "If you're sure about this, then I'll fight for you. I'll fight for us." Moira smiled, the tension in her chest easing slightly. "I'm sure," Aman smiled back, his eyes lighting up with a warmth that sent a rush of warmth through her veins. "Then let's do this. Let's make a promise, Moira, a promise that no matter what happens, we'll never let go of each other. No matter the obstacles, no matter the consequences." Moira's heart swelled with emotion, and without thinking, She wrapped her arms around him, pulling him into a tight embrace. She felt him stiffen for a moment, but then he relaxed, his arms encircling her in return. I promise, she whispered into his chest, feeling his heartbeat beneath her ear. I promise we'll never let go. And in that moment, under the fading light of the setting sun, with the promise of forever hanging between them, Moira believed that nothing could tear them apart. But as they stood there, happy in each other's arms, neither of them could foresee the storm that was about to break, a storm that would test their love and push them to the brink of everything they thought they knew about each other. The evening passed in a haze, a mixture of the sharp fragrance of roses from the garden and the soft clink of glassware at the family dinner table. Moira sat at the far end, her hands folded in her lap, her mind still replaying the conversation with Aman. It had felt like a moment of clarity, a brief oasis of certainty in the storm of emotions that surrounded her. But as the night wore on, that clarity began to fade. The walls of her family's house seemed to close in around her, each room an unspoken reminder of the expectations that had always loomed over her. The moment she stepped into the dining room earlier, the atmosphere had shifted. The silver candelabras glimmered under the soft lighting, but the tension in the air was palpable. Her parents, seated at the head of the table, exchanged looks as Moira took her place. Their eyes, filled with unspoken judgments, followed her every movement. Moira could almost feel the weight of their gaze pressing down on her, suffocating her with their expectations. It wasn't just the fact that she was back, it was the fact that she had made a decision that would change everything. Moira, how was your flight? Her mother, Claudia, asked in that smooth, polished voice she always used at family dinners. But there was an edge to it, a tension that didn't escape Moira's notice. Her mother's words were meant to be a casual inquiry, but they carried the weight of something deeper, something inside. It was fine, Moira replied, her voice steady, though she could feel her heart racing just a little long. Claudia nodded, her lips curling into a tight smile. Of course, you've been gone a long time. It must feel strange, coming back. Moira nodded absently, not sure how to respond. The truth was, she didn't know what it felt like to be back. Home, in the way her parents viewed it, was no longer home to her. She had spent 3 years carving out a life on her own, away from the suffocating expectations of her family. And now that she was back, it felt like a life she had left behind was trying to swallow her whole. Her father, Richard, leaned forward slightly, his brow furrowed as he studied her with a sharp, calculating gaze. You've had quite the time abroad, haven't you, Moira? You've changed. His tone was neutral, but his eyes were anything but. Tell me, what are your plans now? The question hung in the air, heavy and unspoken. Moira swallowed hard, her stomach twisting as the reality of the situation hit her. She had spent so many years trying to avoid this moment, avoiding the confrontation, avoiding the judgment, but it was here now, unavoidable. She took a deep breath and met her father's gaze. I've made a decision, Father. I'm staying here. I'm getting married. The words fell from her lips like stones, heavy and final. The table fell silent. Her mother's expression faltered, her eyes widening ever so slightly, while her father's lips tightened into a thin line. It was as though time had frozen, and for a moment, Moira felt like she was standing at the center of a storm, waiting for it to break. Married. Her father's voice was low, but there was an unmistakable edge to it now. And to whom, exactly? Moira's heart raced. She knew what was coming. The disapproval, the questioning, the rejection. They would never understand. They couldn't. And yet, she couldn't back down. Not now. Not after everything that had happened to Aman, she said, her voice unwavering, despite the turmoil inside her. Claudia's fork clinked against her plate, the sound sharp and unnerving. Aman, she repeated, as though tasting the name for the first time. The man you've been seeing. Moira nodded, her fingers tightening on the edge of her glass. Yes, Aman. He's been a part of my life for the past few years. I want to be with him. Her father's expression darkened, his jaw tightening with barely concealed anger. And you think we'll just accept this? You think we'll accept a man like him into this family? The words hit her like a slap, the sting of them burning deeper than she had expected. What's wrong with him? She asked, her voice rising without her permission. Why can't you just be happy for me? Claudia cleared her throat, her face composed once more, though her eyes flickered with something darker. Moira, it's not about being happy for you. It's about your future, about who you marry. You can't just choose someone without considering the consequences. Richard leaned back in his chair, his expression cold. Aman is not the right choice for you, Moira. We've worked hard to build connections, to give you opportunities. You can't throw all of that away on someone who doesn't have the same standing, the same potential. The room seemed to close in on her, the weight of her father's words pressing down like a physical force. You're making this a matter of status, Moira said, her voice low but filled with a quiet defiance. This isn't about status. This is about love. Claudia's eyes hardened, her lips curling into a tight smile. Love? Do you really believe that love is enough? Do you think it will protect you from the realities of life, from what you have to sacrifice? Moira stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor as she pushed it back. I'm not asking for your approval, she said, her voice firm. I've already made my decision. I love Aman, and I want to marry him. I'm not going to let your expectations dictate my life anymore. Her father's expression was one of shock and disbelief. You're making a huge mistake, he said, his voice cold. This family doesn't abandon its principles. You regret this. Moira's chest tightened, but she held her ground. She could feel her heart pounding in her ears, but there was a strange sense of resolve settling over her. She had been afraid of this moment, afraid of their rejection, but now that it had come, she felt a strange sense of clarity. This was the path she had chosen, and she wasn't going to let them tear her away from it. I'm not going to regret it, she said, her voice steady. This is what I want, and I'm going to fight for it. Her mother's lips twitched in a semblance of a smile, but it was cold, distant. You're welcome to fight all you want, Moira, but know this: your decision will have consequences, and you'll have to live with them. The words hung in the air, a warning, a promise. Moira turned away, her heart heavy with the weight of the fight that was just beginning. As she left the dining room, her parents' voices faded behind her, but she knew the battle was far from over. She had made her choice, but so had they, and neither side would back down easily. The following days felt like a slow, suffocating descent into a storm that Moira could neither avoid nor control. Despite her resolve to stand by her decision, the consequences of her choice began to weigh on her. The house that once felt like a home now felt like a battlefield. Each room seemed to echo with the tension that had been left unsaid at dinner. Every glance, every word, every silence between her and her parents seemed to draw the lines deeper. Moira's mother, Claudia, had hardly spoken to her since that night. The polite but distant silence that hung in the air was more deafening than any argument. Her father, Richard, had become even more aloof, his eyes cold whenever he looked at her. The family dinners were filled with meaningless chatter, designed to maintain appearances. But it was clear that something had irrevocably shifted. The only person who seemed unaffected by the tension was Aman. He had called her every day, his voice a comforting presence in the chaos of her life, but even his voice couldn't erase the unease that she felt in her own home. They had arranged to meet again in the park that afternoon, something simple, a way to escape the oppressive atmosphere, but even the thought of seeing him brought a flutter of nerves to her stomach. The park was one of Moira's favorite places in the city, a quiet oasis in the middle of the concrete jungle, with tall, aged trees and a serene pond, the kind of place where she could breathe without feeling smothered. As she arrived, she spotted Aman sitting on one of the stone benches by the water, his dark hair tousled by the wind. He looked up as he heard her approach, a faint smile tugging at his lips, but there was something in his eyes that made her pause. Moira, Aman greeted her softly, standing up as she approached. It's good to see you, she smiled back, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. It's good to see you too. They stood there for a moment, just looking at each other, the world around them seemingly vanishing for the briefest of moments. But the weight of everything that had happened, the fight with her parents, the unspoken tension was heavy in the air. Moira could feel the heaviness of her own thoughts pressing down on her chest, threatening to spill over. I've been thinking about what happened with your family, Aman said, his voice steady but laced with a quiet concern. I don't want you to feel like you have to carry the weight of this decision alone. You know that, right? Moira sighed, sitting down beside him on the bench. I know, I just didn't expect it to be this difficult. They don't understand, Aman. They think I'm throwing everything away for you, for us. Aman sat down next to her, his presence warm, grounding. I don't want to come between you and your family, Moira, but I can't let you go either. I won't let you give up on what we have. Moira turned her head to look at him, her expression softening. I don't want to give up on us, she said quietly, her voice filled with conviction. But it's hard. It's hard when they look at me like I'm making a mistake, like everything I've done until now doesn't matter. Aman took her hand in his touch reassuring. You haven't made a mistake, you're just living your truth, and I believe in that. Moira smiled weakly, squeezing his hand in return. It just feels like the world is against us. The wind rustled through the trees, and for a brief moment, there was silence between them, the kind of silence that could either be comforting or suffocating, depending on how you looked at it. Moira leaned back against the stone bench, her eyes closed for a moment as she took a deep breath. She wanted to believe in Aman's words, to trust that everything would work out, but the reality of her family's disapproval was becoming harder to ignore. I don't want to lose you, Aman, she whispered, her voice barely audible. You won't lose me, he said firmly, his voice full of assurance. I'm not going anywhere. But even as he spoke those words, Moira couldn't shake the nagging doubt that had begun to settle in her chest. What if they were making a mistake? What if her family was right? The pressure was mounting, and she could feel the walls closing in. Later that evening, Moira returned home to find the house eerily quiet. The usual bustle of the servants preparing dinner was absent, and the house seemed colder than it ever had before. She couldn't avoid her parents forever, and she knew it was time to face them again. The lingering tension was suffocating, but she needed to find a way to stand her ground. She found Claudia in the sitting room, sitting by the large bay window, her hands folded neatly in her lap. The older woman didn't look up as Moira entered, but there was an unmistakable sense of tension in the air, as though her mother was preparing for something. Moira hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath and approached. "Mom," she began, her voice steady but carrying a slight edge. "Can we talk?" Claudia's gaze flickered toward her, her eyes cool but not unkind. "Of course, Moira, what's on your mind? I need to know why you and Dad are treating me like this," Moira said, her voice breaking slightly as the weight of her emotions started to leak through. "I know you don't approve of Aman, but I'm not asking for your approval. I'm asking for your understanding." Claudia's expression softened, but her tone remained cautious. "You're asking for something that's impossible. Moira, we've spent years building a life for you here. Your father and I have worked tirelessly to give you the best opportunities. And now you're telling us that you want to throw all of that away for someone we don't know. Someone who doesn't have the background, the standing, the future we've worked for." Moira's breath caught in her throat as she struggled to find the right words. "It's not about that, Mom. It's not about his background or his money or any of that. It's about me. It's about my happiness. I'm not asking for you to love him. I'm asking for you to respect my choice." Claudia stood, her movements slow and deliberate. She crossed the room to stand before Moira, her gaze steady. "I can't respect something that's going to ruin your future, Moira. I can't." The words stung more than Moira expected. She swallowed hard, trying to keep the tears at bay. "I don't want to live my life in a cage, Mom. I don't want to be who you want me to be. I want to live my life on my terms. And if that means being with Aman, then that's what I'm going to do." Claudia's eyes hardened, her lips pressing into a thin line. "If you choose him, you're choosing a life of hardship, Moira, a life of uncertainty. And I won't watch you destroy your future." "I'm not destroying it," Moira replied, her voice firmer now. "I'm building it. And I'm doing it with the person I love." Her mother's gaze flickered with something anger, frustration, or perhaps a deep sadness that Moira couldn't quite interpret. "Then you'll have to do it without us." The words hung in the air, sharp and final. Moira's heart skipped a beat, the weight of her mother's statement sinking deep into her chest. But as the silence stretched between them, she realized something. No matter how hard this was, no matter the pain it caused, she was willing to fight for her future, for the life she wanted, even if it meant losing everything she had ever known. She straightened her shoulders, meeting her mother's gaze without flinching. "Then I guess I will." The days that followed were a blur of tension, tears, and words that couldn't be taken back. Moira could feel herself slowly pulling away from everything she had known. Her relationship with her parents had become a battleground, a war of silence and barely suppressed animosity. Every moment at home felt like walking through a minefield, each step more uncertain than the last. The tension was palpable, hanging thick in the air, suffocating her with each breath she took. Aman had tried to be her rock, to comfort her in the midst of the storm, but even his presence couldn't dispel the darkness that seemed to surround her. She found herself withdrawing from him as well, unsure of how much longer she could continue pretending that everything was okay. There was a nagging feeling in the back of her mind that perhaps she was making the wrong choice, that the love she had for Aman, no matter how deep, couldn't shield her from the consequences of defying her family. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that there was no turning back now. It was on the third day after her conversation with her mother that everything came to a head. Moira had gone out to meet Aman in the city, hoping for a moment of peace, a brief respite from the chaos that had consumed her life. They had chosen a quiet cafe by the waterfront, a place that had once been their sanctuary. But as she stepped into the cafe and saw Aman sitting at their usual table, something in the pit of her stomach twisted. His face, once full of warmth, was now shadowed with something darker, something that mirrored the confusion and hurt she felt. "Moira," he said softly when he saw her, his voice barely above a whisper. She smiled weakly, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. She sat down opposite him, her hands trembling slightly as they rested on the table. "Hey, Aman," she replied, her voice hoarse. "Sorry I'm late." Aman's eyes studied her carefully, noting the way her shoulders were stiff, the way she avoided looking at him directly. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers gently. "What's going on, Moira?" His voice was quiet, but there was a clear note of concern in it. "You're not yourself lately." Moira took a deep breath, swallowing the lump in her throat. "I don't know what to do anymore," she admitted, her voice cracking slightly. "I love you, Aman, but everything with my family is falling apart. My mother, my father, they're so angry. I don't know how much more I can take." Aman's head tightened around hers, his eyes softening with empathy. "I know this is hard," he said, his voice steady, "but I'm not going anywhere. Moira, I'll be here, no matter what." She shook her head, her eyes filling with unshed tears. "It's not just about us anymore, Aman. It's about everything I've known. My parents, my life, everything is being torn apart, and I'm not sure how much of it I can hold on to." Aman leaned forward, his gaze intense as he searched her eyes. "Moira," he said, his voice firm, "you don't have to choose between me and your family. I won't let you." Her heart ached as she looked at him. She wanted to believe him, to trust that somehow everything would work out, but the doubt that had been gnawing at her for days couldn't be ignored. I don't know if I can keep doing this, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I don't know if I can keep fighting. Aman's eyes darkened, his jaw tightening as he sat back in his chair. You can't just give up, he said, the frustration in his voice palpable. Moira, you've always been strong. Don't let them break you. Don't let them make you think you're wrong for loving me. She stared at him, her chest tight with emotion. It's not that simple, Aman, she said softly. I can't just ignore the people who raised me, who gave me everything. They're my family. Aman's expression softened as he reached across the table to take her hand again. I know they're your family, but they can't tell you who to love. They can't control your life. Not anymore. Moira pulled her hand away, her eyes filled with a mix of sadness and frustration. I don't know what to do, Aman. I'm stuck in the middle. I don't know how to choose between you and them. Aman's face hardened, and for a moment, he looked almost angry. I can't keep doing this, Moira. I can't keep watching you doubt us. We're not just some fling, some passing moment. We've been through too much for that. Her heart twisted as she looked at him, the pain in his eyes mirroring her own. I'm not doubting us, she whispered. I'm doubting everything else. Aman sat back, his head dropping to his lap. The silence between them grew thick and suffocating. The calf around them seemed to blur as the weight of the moment settled in. Moira could hear the soft murmur of other conversations, the clinking of coffee cups, but none of it felt real. Nothing felt real anymore. Finally, Aman broke the silence, his voice cold and distant. If you can't choose me, then maybe you're not ready for this. For us. Her breath caught in her throat. The words hit her like a punch, and for a moment, she couldn't move, couldn't speak. She had never seen him like this, never heard him speak with such finality. And Moira began, but the words seemed to stick in her throat. Aman stood abruptly, his chest scraping loudly against the floor. I don't want to keep holding on to something that isn't real, Moira. I can't keep fighting alone. He turned away from her, his back stiff as he moved toward the door. Maybe we're not meant to be. Moira's heart shattered as she watched him leave. She wanted to run after him, to stop him, to make him understand that she wasn't giving up on him. But she couldn't. She couldn't make him stay when she didn't even know where she stood. The door closed behind him with a soft thud, and in that moment, the weight of everything crashed down on her. The love she had fought for, the future she had envisioned, it all felt like it was slipping through her fingers. The uncertainty, the doubt, it had consumed her in a way she never expected. The realization hit her like a wave, sweeping her under, leaving her gasping for breath. She had spent so long trying to hold on to both sides, trying to make everyone happy, trying to be everything for everyone. But in the end, it wasn't enough. She couldn't keep walking this tightrope, torn between the love she had for Aman and the love she owed her family. And now, as she sat alone in the cafe, the bitter taste of regret filling her mouth, she understood that there was no easy answer, no clear path forward, only the harsh reality of the choices she had made and the ones she still had to face. As the sunlight outside began to fade, casting long shadows across the floor, Moira felt as if her world had crumbled around her, and for the first time, she wasn't sure who she was fighting for anymore. The days that followed felt like a blur of restlessness and endless days of contemplation. Moira could hardly focus on anything. The world seemed to move around her in a disorienting haze, and no matter how hard she tried to push the events of the past few days from her mind, they always found their way back, tugging at her heart, gnawing at her thoughts. The cafe where she had last seen Aman, the coldness in his eyes as he walked away, replayed in her mind like a broken record. She couldn't escape the hurt, the regret, the finality of it all. Her parents, of course, were unaware of the storm brewing within her. They continued their silent treatment, and with each passing day, Moira felt more isolated, more alone. Every glance her mother gave her was filled with judgment, and her father, though quiet, had an air of disappointment that seemed to hang over him like a cloud, but nothing compared to the silence that had settled between her and Aman. After their painful confrontation at the cafe, Moira had tried to reach out to him. She called, texted, and even sent messages through mutual friends, but there was nothing. The phone calls went unanswered, and the messages remained unread. It was as if he had vanished from her life entirely, leaving behind nothing but the echo of their last conversation. It was early afternoon when Moira decided that enough was enough. She couldn't keep going on like this, lost, unsure, stuck in limbo. She needed answers. She needed closure. If Aman wouldn't come to her, then she would go to him. She made her way to his apartment, the familiar route to his place now feeling foreign, like she was stepping into a world she didn't belong to anymore. When she reached the door, her hand hovered above the doorbell for a moment. She hesitated, wondering if she was making the right decision. But then, with a deep breath, she pressed it. The sound of the bell rang through the quiet hallway, and Moira could feel her heart racing in her chest. The door opened, and there he was. Aman stood before her, his expression guarded, as if he hadn't expected her to show up. The sight of him was like a punch to her gut. He looked exactly the same, but everything between them had changed. The distance between them seemed insurmountable. "Moira," he said, his voice low, almost resigned. What are you doing here? She swallowed, forcing her voice to stay steady. I need to talk to you, Aman, please. He stepped aside, silently inviting her in. Moira walked past him into the apartment, feeling the weight of the silence between them. It was strange. She had been here countless times before, their laughter filling the space, their shared moments of quiet comfort. But now, the apartment felt cold, empty, like a reflection of everything that had unraveled between them. She sat down on the couch, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Aman sat opposite her, his posture tense, his arms crossed. Neither of them spoke for a long time, the space between them growing with each passing second. Finally, Moira broke the silence. Aman, I don't know what happened between us. I don't know why you walked away that day. But I need you to understand something. Aman's eyes narrowed slightly, and he uncrossed his arms, his gaze never leaving her. Understand what? Moira, that you can't choose. That I'm not worth fighting for, because that's what it felt like. That day at the cafe, it felt like you were giving up on us. Her heart twisted, and she quickly looked away, blinking back the tears that threatened to spill. No, that's not it. It's just, I don't know how to fix everything, Aman. I don't know how to keep both my family and you in my life, and I hate that it's come to this. I hate that we're at this point. Aman leaned forward, his eyes softening for a moment as he met her gaze. I don't want you to hate it. I don't want you to feel like you're caught between two worlds. But I can't keep waiting for you to choose. Moira, I can't keep fighting alone. I need to know that you're all in, that you want this as much as I do. I do. Moira's voice cracked, and she reached out, her hand trembling as it hovered between them. I want you, Aman. I need you. But I don't know how to make this work. I don't know how to make my family understand. And I don't know if I'm strong enough to lose everything. Aman took a deep breath, and when he spoke again, his voice was calm, but there was a hardness to it. You don't have to lose everything, Moira, but you have to choose. And you have to be strong enough to stand by that choice, no matter the consequences. I'm not asking you to abandon your family. I'm asking you to fight for us, for our future. Moira stared at him, her heart racing as the weight of his words settled in her chest. Could she do it? Could she choose him? Despite everything, the thought of losing her family, of losing everything she had known was terrifying. But the thought of losing Aman felt like something far worse. The love she had for him was undeniable, something that had grown stronger with each passing day. But was love enough to overcome the obstacles in front of them? I don't know if I can fight them anymore, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I don't know if I can keep going like this. Torn between the two of you. Aman's face softened, and he stood up, walking over to where she sat. He knelt in front of her, gently taking her hands in his. Moira, I'm not asking you to fight them alone. I'm here with you. I'll always be here. But you have to decide. Do you want to spend the rest of your life in the shadows of your family's expectations? Or do you want to step into the light with me? The tears she had been holding back finally spilled over, and she let out a shaky breath. I don't know, Aman. I don't know if I'm strong enough. You are, he said softly, his thumb brushing away a tear from her cheek. You are, Moira. You've always been strong, and whatever you decide, I'll stand by you. The tenderness in his words broke something inside her, and for the first time since all of this began, Moira felt like she could breathe again. The weight of her choices, the pressure, the fear, it was all still there, heavy on her shoulders. But for a moment, she wasn't alone. Aman was there. He was with her. But as the moment stretched on, Moira knew that this couldn't last forever. She couldn't keep dancing around the truth. She had to face it head on, and she had to make a choice. I need time, she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. I need time to think, to figure out what I want, what's worth fighting for. Aman nodded, his eyes still filled with that unwavering love and understanding. Take all the time you need, but just remember, whatever you decide, I'm here, and I always will be. Moira stood up, her legs feeling weak beneath her. She wiped her eyes, taking a deep breath to steady herself. She didn't have all the answers, but for the first time in days, she felt like she could face the future. The road ahead was uncertain, but with Aman by her side or without him, she knew she had to find her own path. Thank you, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Aman gave her a small, reassuring smile as she turned to leave. You don't have to thank me, Moira. I'll always be here. As Moira walked out of the apartment, she didn't know where the journey would take her, but for the first time, she felt like she was taking control. The days that followed her meeting with Aman felt like a constant battle within herself. Moira had returned home with a heavy heart, her mind a maze of conflicting thoughts. She needed to make a decision. She needed to choose him or them. But as she lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, the weight of the decision only grew heavier. Her family's expectations gnawed at her like a relentless tide, pulling her toward them. Yet, every time she thought of Aman, of their love, it felt like she was on the brink of something she couldn't let go. Her parents were still silent, their disapproval hanging thick in the air. It was as if the more she tried to bridge the gap between them, the more they recoiled, retreating into their own world of disappointment. It stung more than she cared to admit. Her mother's cold, distant glares were starting to chip away at the once unshakable bond they had shared. Her father, a man who had always been a pillar of strength, seemed to grow more distant with each passing day. The house felt like a tomb, quiet, suffocating, and full of things left unsaid. Moira couldn't remember the last time she had felt truly at peace. She hadn't seen Aman since their conversation at his apartment, and each day that passed without hearing from him felt like a painful reminder of what she stood to lose. She had tried to call him, but he never answered. It was as though he had vanished completely from her life. The silence between them was deafening, and it made her question whether her love for him was enough to overcome the turmoil that was slowly consuming her. It was Friday afternoon when the doorbell rang. Moira was sitting in the living room, her mind still swirling with the choices she had to make. When she heard the sound of the bell echoing through the house, her heart skipped a beat as she stood up, unsure of who it could be. She opened the door, half expecting to see her mother standing there, ready to give her another lecture, or perhaps her father with his quiet disappointment. But it wasn't her parents. Standing on the doorstep was Aman. Moira froze, her breath catching in her throat. He looked the same as he had the last time she saw him, but there was a sadness in his eyes, something she hadn't noticed before. His jaw was clenched, and his usual easy smile was absent, replaced by an expression that seemed almost resigned. "Aman," she said softly, unsure of what to say, how to greet him after everything that had happened. He stood there for a moment, as if unsure of whether he should say anything at all. The silence stretched between them, thick and uncomfortable. Finally, he stepped forward, his voice low but steady. "I came to talk, Moira. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep pretending like everything's fine when it's not." Moira opened her mouth to respond, but the words got caught in her throat. She wanted to apologize, to explain everything that had been happening in her life, but she couldn't find the right words. Her heart was beating too loudly, drowning out the rest of her thoughts. Aman took a step closer, his eyes searching hers. "I don't want to fight with you anymore. I don't want to live in this limbo. I need to know where we stand. Moira, I can't keep waiting for you to choose." She felt her chest tighten. She had spent so many days wondering the same thing. Where do we stand? She had no answers, no easy answers. "Aman," she started, her voice wavering. "I don't know if I can choose. I don't know if I can make a decision." He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck, his frustration palpable. "That's the problem, Moira. You keep saying you don't know, but you do. You know what you want. You just don't want to admit it to yourself." Her breath hitched in her throat. Was it that obvious? Was it really that simple? She had thought she was hiding her uncertainty, her inner turmoil. But maybe he saw through it all. Maybe, just maybe, he knew her better than she knew herself. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered, looking down at the ground as tears welled in her eyes. "But I don't want to lose my family either. I don't know how to do this, Aman. I don't know how to make everyone happy." Aman's expression softened, and he reached out, gently lifting her chin so that she had to look at him. "Moira, you don't have to make everyone happy. You don't have to live for other people's expectations. I know your family is important to you, but you've got to start living for yourself, for us." "But how?" she choked out, her voice trembling. "How can I choose between you and them?" Aman sighed, stepping closer until they were just inches apart. "You don't have to choose between me and them. You just have to choose you. Choose your happiness. Choose your future. I want to be a part of that, Moira, but I need to know if you're ready to fight for us." She closed her eyes, feeling the weight of his words sinking. She had spent so much time trying to please everyone, her family, her friends, society, and in doing so, she had lost sight of what she wanted, what she needed. It wasn't about choosing between Aman and her family. It was about choosing herself, about finding the strength to stand up for her own happiness. But the fear of rejection, the fear of losing everything she had known, still held her back. "What if I choose you, and I lose my family?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Aman's gaze softened. "I can't promise that you won't lose them, but I can promise you that you won't lose me. And if your family truly loves you, they'll find a way to accept us. But you can't keep living in this shadow of doubt, Moira. You can't keep letting the fear of losing them hold you back from what could be the best thing in your life." The silence between them was thick, but this time, it wasn't uncomfortable. It was a silence filled with understanding, filled with the weight of the decision that Moira had to make. "I'm scared, Aman," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I'm scared that I'm going to lose everything. I know," he said softly, "but you can't live in fear forever. You have to take a chance, Moira. For us, for you." She looked up at him, her heart heavy with the burden of her decision. She had never felt so torn, so uncertain, but she also knew that if she didn't take a step forward now, she might lose everything she had ever cared about him, her family, herself. Finally, she nodded. "I'll try," she sighed, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "I'll try to figure it out. I'll try to choose what's best for me." Aman smiled, a mixture of relief and hope in his eyes. "That's all I can ask for." As he stepped closer to her, wrapping his arms around her, Moira felt a flicker of hope ignite deep within her. The road ahead was uncertain, and the future still seemed daunting, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she wasn't alone. Maybe, just maybe, she could find a way to make it work. The morning light filtered through the curtains of Moira's bedroom, casting soft beams across the room, yet her heart felt heavy with the weight of what she knew she had to do. For the past week, she had spent sleepless nights wrestling with her decision. She had tried to picture a future where she could have both her family and Aman, but the more she thought about it, the more she realized that the line she was walking was too thin, too fragile to hold both together. The pull of her family, their expectations, their constant demands for her to conform, felt like chains that tightened with every day that passed. But Aman had shown her what love was supposed to feel like, not just in its sweetness, but in its honesty. He had told her that she had to choose herself, to choose what made her happy. But how could she choose herself when the people she loved most were caught in the storm of her choices? She hadn't spoken to her parents in days. Their silence was suffocating, and Moira could feel it eating away at the edges of their relationship. Her mother's cold demeanor had never been more apparent, and her father had retreated into his study, as though trying to escape the inevitable confrontation that loomed over them all. But today Moira had made up her mind. She would go to them. She would tell them everything. She would choose her happiness, even if it meant risking everything else. It was a sunny afternoon when Moira finally found herself standing in front of the family home, the weight of her decision pressing down on her chest. She had called ahead, telling her parents she needed to speak with them. As she rang the doorbell, the echo seemed to stretch into eternity. Her stomach twisted with nerves. But there was no turning back now. The door swung open, and her mother stood there, her expression as cold as ever, her arms crossed over her chest. "Moira," she said simply. Her voice clipped. "You wanted to talk." Moira nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. She had always been close to her mother, or at least, she used to be. Now, standing here, she felt a vast gulf between them. "I need to explain something to you," she began, her voice faltering slightly. "I've made a decision." Her mother raised an eyebrow, stepping back to allow her inside. "A decision," she repeated, as though the word itself was foreign. "About what?" Moira took a deep breath, steeling herself for what she knew would be a hard conversation. "About Aman." Her mother's face immediately darkened. "This again," she snapped. "Moira, I thought we'd been through this. You know how we feel about him." "I know," Moira said quietly, "but it's not just about him, it's about me. I need you to understand something." She stepped forward, her voice gaining strength as she spoke. "I love him. I know it's not what you want, and I know you think he's not good enough for me. But I've spent the last few days really thinking about what I want, and I want him." Her mother's face turned pale with anger. "You're throwing everything away for this. Your future, your family, your reputation, all of it for someone like him." Moira shook her head, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "I'm not throwing everything away. I'm choosing my own happiness. For once, I'm choosing me. I can't keep living in your shadow, trying to be what you want me to be. I'm not that person anymore." The silence between them was thick, suffocating. Her mother stared at her for a long time, as if processing the weight of her words. Then, with a sharp intake of breath, she spoke. "You're making a mistake. You think you know what's best for you, but you don't. I've always wanted what's best for you. Moira, you're being impulsive. You're letting your emotions cloud your judgment." Moira felt a pain in her chest. It hurt more than she could put into words to see the disappointment in her mother's eyes. She had never wanted to disappoint her, never wanted to disappoint anyone, but now she realized that sometimes, the hardest choices were the ones that came from the heart, not from fear. "I know you think that," she said softly, "but this is my life. It's my choice. I love you, but I need to live my own truth." Her mother was silent for a long time. Then, without another word, she turned and walked into the living room, motioning for Moira to follow. As Moira sat across from her, her heart raced. She could feel the walls closing in. This conversation was only going to get harder. Her mother's voice was low and steady, but there was an unmistakable edge to it. "If you're really determined to be with him, then fine. But understand this. While you are cutting ties with this family, we cannot accept this. We will not be a part of your life if you choose him." The words hit Moira like a slap to the face. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Her mind whirled as the full extent of her mother's ultimatum sank in. Cut ties with the family. Was it really worth it? Was she really prepared to lose everything she had known for the love she shared with Aman? Her father's voice broke through her thoughts. "Moira." He had entered the room silently, his presence imposing yet quiet. He looked older, more tired than Moira had remembered, and the sadness in his eyes only added to the weight on her shoulders. "Your mother is right. This isn't just about you and him. It's about the consequences, the ripple effect this will have on all of us." Moira looked at her father, her chest tightening. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered, the tears finally spilling over. "I don't want to lose everything, but I don't know how to make it stop hurting. I don't know how to please both of you and him." Her father's eyes softened, and he walked over to her, sitting down beside her. We've always wanted the best for you, Moira. But if you truly believe that this is what will make you happy, then you must make that choice. Just know, we can't be part of that world. Not if you choose him. Moira's breath caught in her throat. This was it. This was the moment she had feared. The moment she would lose the people she had always loved. All for the sake of love that felt like it might slip through her fingers the moment she let go. I'm sorry, she whispered, her heart breaking as the words left her lips. I can't live in fear anymore. I can't keep living for someone else's idea of who I should be. Her mother's face hardened, but her father simply nodded, his expression unreadable. If that's what you want, then go to him. The finality of the words hung in the air, and Moira stood up, her legs trembling beneath her. The decision had been made. She wasn't sure if it was the right one, but it was the only one that felt like it belonged to her, and maybe that was enough. Maybe, for once, she was allowed to choose herself. I'll go, she said, her voice steady. I'm sorry, I'll always love you, but I have to do this. As she turned to leave, her mother's voice followed her, shocked and cutting. You'll regret this, Moira, you'll regret it. But Moira didn't stop. She couldn't stop. The future was still uncertain, but as she stepped out into the world, she felt something shift inside her, a quiet sense of freedom, of knowing that she was finally choosing her own path, and that was enough.